Hey guys, we are here today in Valheim, taking a look at 4 unique roofing styles you can use in your base to set yourself apart from your other group members, or to just mix things up between your different buildings. Some of these different styles can actually bring you some advantages while you play the game, but you may end up using a unique roofing style primarily for the aesthetic look, if you're tired of just using the standard Gable, gambrel, or hip style roofs. The first one we're going to go over is a variation of the gable roof itself, and it is a stepped gable or a crow-stepped gable. Not only does this roofing style make your building kind of pop and give it a regal look, but it actually became popular because it's an easy way to finish stone or brick on a building without trying to match them up to the roof itself, since the bricks are square and the roof is slanted. Which is actually something that's very useful in Valheim, since we don't have any angled stone pieces, and that makes sense. I have in past videos shown you how to get angled stone pieces underneath a roof in order to make slants, and that's with stairs. But they do end up popping through the roof just a little bit, and sometimes you're looking for a more aesthetically pleasing and easier finish. And that's where the stepped gable comes in. Now, in order to build a stepped gable roof, we are not going to overhang the roof at all, or even go flush with the front. We are actually going to go inside the exterior layer of stone on the front and back of the building. I'm using 26-degree roof shingles for this, but it does work on 45 or 26 depending on how high you want the steps to go. Once you have your roofing pieces in place, exposing the entire front and back layer of your stone wall, then you can create the steps. I would continue following whatever pattern you have your stone breaks in and keep the seams on the half lines. And continue using the 2x1s and the 1x1 pieces to keep your pattern and extend across the entire front and back. Once you have that entire first layer up, I'd create the first step by placing a 1x1 stone block 1 meter in, and then placing a 2x1 attached to it. Once that 2x1 is in place, you can remove the spacer 1x1, leaving yourself a 2 meter wide ledge. Continue this layer across, ending with the same 2 meter ledge on the other side. After the first layer, I would mark out your next one with a 1x1 block even with the edge of that last layer, leaving you just a 1x1 ledge on the next layer up. And cross over the whole way, and there will be a 1x1 on each side. I would then do a 1x1 layer on the next row up as well, and a lot of times with the stone, you may be able to even snap it without the 1x1 spacer on the edge. And then once we get to the top, you might have to use a spacer, but I would place a 2x1 up in the center of the ledge, leaving yourself with a 2 meter on the bottom, a 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter, and then a 2 meter on the top, giving yourself a stepped gable roof. Now this can be done in any way that you would like, and you can keep a 1 meter pattern all the way up to the top, which was ending up a little too high for my preference, or you can go with 2 meter blocks and make the steps not as steep. All of that is completely personal preference, and you can handle it any way you choose. Even if you wanted to add a 1x1 to the top of the final layer, you would have to free place it, but you can get it up to go to a peak if you would like that, but I prefer the wider top. There is no set definition on what you need to do to get these steps in place, or how many meters wide they need to be. Get what you're comfortable with and you like the look of, and I'm sure it'll come out just fine. Not only does this stepped gable roof give you a nice finish for your stone buildings and ease of building them, but it can also bring you some pretty nice defense during raids at your base, giving you something on the roof to hide behind and step out and shoot with your bow. The one downside to stepped gable buildings is it can be hard to seal the edge of the stone with the roofing since it is inside the interior walls, and you can have a lot of water leaks. Obviously this is not a problem in Valheim, however if you're trying to be realistic in your designs, maybe don't put this building in the swamp or the mountains, as this roofing style would not fit that type of climate. The next style we're going to talk about is the Mansard roof, which is a mix of a hip style roof and a gambrel, which are both common styles, but when you mix them together it gives you something pretty unique and pretty useful. Due to the way the roofing works out, you can actually have a pretty compact layout, but still make a 2-story building with a decent loft area. In order to start off with a Mansard roof, we're going to start it like any basic hip roof, and use outside corner pieces in all of the corners. Now because we're mixing a hip roof with a gambrel roof, it is imperative that this first stage of the roofing be done in 45-degree angles. You'll go ahead and go around the entire thing with your standard 45-degree roofing tiles. After the first layer of roofing, we'll switch to 26-degree roofing, giving its gambrel style, and maintaining the hip style as well by using outside corner pieces at all the corners. And you'll finish closing in the top of the roof with 26-degree regular tiles and then do the next layer up again with 26 degree if it keeps going on higher than this right here. This mansard roof style can work on larger buildings than the one I have shown right here, but the larger your building, the higher the 45 degrees are going to need to go, and it might start looking a little awkward. As it stands with this small size of a building, it's pretty compact and does not have a large profile and even looks shorter than a standard gable roof. The bonus to the mansard roof, when done on a tile and a half high, is that you can floor the entire second level and then just create yourself a small little stairway up. I prefer to use ladders for their compact size, and make sure you pop out the tiles all above the stairs. This right here effectively gives you a pretty neat loft that has plenty of room for living quarters. This mansard style roof can really give you a small and compact base that can fit quite a bit in it without being too much of an eyesore or taking up too much room. If you add in some dormers in this loft, it can actually add some really good natural light and some extra room. And if you're not exactly sure how to get dormers to work really well in Valheim, then you can click on my video at the top screen here, which goes over them in more detail. The next roof we're going to talk about is the Saltbox roof. This roof is typically used on larger houses and not exactly for a compact build. What this roof is going to do is use a 45-degree angle on the back end of the house, moving over the majority of the floor. And then it will use a 26-degree and a shallower slope on the front end of the house, making the front end taller and allowing you to have 2 stories on one end of the house. You can see when you're inside one that it gives a pretty roomy interior, a back storage area, and maybe a staircase, leading up to pretty much a full-size second story. This is for a much larger design in the base, and can likely house most of a base, even a smelter and a kiln if you go high enough on the first floor, if you're interested in making just one large building. Now what I recommend when building a Saltbox house is to start the very back end of the house where you're going to have the 45-degree slope on just half walls. Or you could even just do it coming directly off the floor like an A-frame if you're not worried about how much room is in the back and you'd like to make the roofing a little bit easier. The issue with a Saltbox house in Valheim is that it is going to have some structural stability at the top, and you're going to have to build a mid-wall across the entire thing in order to support the roof and be able to finish it. This isn't exactly a big problem because realistically speaking, Saltbox houses have had issues with the stability of the outer walls with the pressure of the back slope pushing against the wall at a steeper angle. So a lot of Saltbox houses have to have a wall or support in them to create structural stability throughout the entire home. Most of the time they use that back room for storage or essentially as a connected shed, which is what we'll be doing here. Once you've decided on how high you want to go on the back wall, you're going to run 45-degree pieces and work them all the way up to the top, filling in the gaps along the wall as we go. Now, how far you take these over the floor plan is also up to you, but I would recommend going about 60% of the building, if not a little bit more. The more you take these slopes, the higher the building gets, and you definitely don't want it meeting at the midpoint if you want a large upstairs. You may even want to run the front of the building a little bit and run 26-degree roofs off of that to kind of get an idea of how far out it is you want to go, and change your angle based off of that. This roofing style would take a lot of trial and error on your part to figure out what slope you like more. You can have the 26 degrees come off from a lower point and meet more towards the middle of the house, or have them start up higher and push the peak over to the side more. You can see here that starting with the 26 degrees at a lower point, even though they're a flatter roof, lowers the overall room in your loft, but it could possibly make the roofing process substantially easier. Once you've officially determined what slope you're going with, I would try to get both side walls all filled in and get both sides of the house finished before you move on to the center of the roof. Once you've gotten both sides of the roof done and gotten the front wall up to the height that it needs to be across the board, I would continue roofing it like normal until you hit a point where you can roof no longer due to the structural stability. Due to the sheer size of a building like this and the steep angles of the roof, you are no doubt going to have to build some form of scaffolding system to be able to get yourself across it, and you may end up having to use something like core wood logs to support scaffolds in order to get up high enough. You can see here that after I've tried it over and over, the very center of the roof on both sides cannot be supported, and that's where an interior wall starts to come in. Like I said earlier, real Saltbox houses typically need an interior wall to keep the back end wall with this steeper angle from pressing out and destroying the building. You can run just poles and beams in here if you would like to get the support you need, or you can just wall off the entire back end and create yourself a small little storage room. This storage room can have access from the exterior or the interior depending on what you're looking to use it for. Once your roof is finally in place, you can then add a second story. You also have the option when you're done to either place the stairs in the living area in the front or in the back storage room, eliminating some of your storage space but also keeping it nice and tidy. All in all, although it's complicated to get it roofed, the Saltbox adds a ton of living space and can be quite effective for storing a lot of goods. Due to the fact that the walls go up so high, it's also easy to place windows in here and get some natural light, or even add dormers to the top of the roof. Even though you won't be able to use them for extra walking space, they will still add a lot of natural light. Unlike the previous two roofing styles we did, the Saltbox roofing is actually amazing in colder and harsher climates such as rain or snow. So if you're looking to make this a realistic building piece, maybe look at building this when you are in the mountains or in the swamp, as it is designed to handle harsh winds and heavy precipitation. The next roofing style we're going to take a look at is the Sawtooth roof. This very unique style of roof is often seen in 3 or more sections because it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, along with bringing a ton of natural light into the building. In real life, typically the Sawtooth building is done with 2 different degree angles similar to the Saltbox and the Mansard, with the shallower angle being the one that brings in natural light. Now in Valheim, we don't have the ability to do windows on those shallow angle roofs, unless you want to use wood beams, but that would still let rain into the house. So we're going to use flat walls instead, but it still comes out looking pretty decent. Now for the Sawtooth building, your floor plan doesn't have to be anything special. Right here I just have 6 tiles deep, and then I split it into 3 different 4 tile wide sections, so that there's a double door with 1 wall on each side. Now you have the option of splitting up these rooms like this one here, where its own little section and apartment, or you could even leave them all with an entirely open floor plan and make them one giant workshop. If you do this method, you may end up needing to run beams or poles across the center and maybe have 1 support in order to have the roof snap to and not have any structural problems. Now ideally what you want to do is face the roof pieces that you're about to do away from the sun so that the direct sunlight is not coming into the building, which was the original design of these Sawtooth buildings to prevent the strain of the sun from beating down on the workers inside of factories, while also providing natural light since the Sawtooth roofing style was primarily popular before artificial light was widely available. I like to run 26 degree roofs instead of 45 because I feel like 45 just gets a bit too high and it doesn't look quite as good aesthetically. You'll run the 26 degree roofing all the way over until your midpoint or your splits in your floor plan. Now if you've already mapped out your midpoint wall, whether it's in beams or in an actual wall, then it's pretty easy. You're just going to continue this Sawtooth pattern throughout the rest of the sections. It'll start low again at the base, going the same direction with the roofing, and working your way over to the next seam. Now once you get it in place, you can fill in the big window openings with whatever you prefer, whether it be metal walls, something like dark wood dividers, doing a more unique design with beams, or some other combination. The nice thing about this roof design is because the roof tiles overlap just evenly with the outside of the wall, all this will be protected by the rain and you don't have to worry about any rot. I think the design can be really good for multiplayer in order to give each player their own little living space in one collective bunkhouse, or to use it as it was historically intended as a workshop or a factory that emits natural light into it. Now those are just 4 unique roof styles you can use in Valheim to make your base pop a little bit, or to help turn your square or rectangle building into something that's a little bit more flashy and aesthetically pleasing. Some of these roofs like the Sawtooth or the stepped gable can actually help you in the game by providing more light or some defense during raids, even if you don't care about the decorative bonuses. Hopefully this video helped you out a little bit and gave you some inspiration for your base in Valheim. Let me know down in the comments if you've used any of these roofing styles, or if you have a unique roofing style that you enjoy using and why you enjoy using it. Maybe you can help out another player in the game find some inspiration for their base and give them that little bit they need to have a more peaceful and relaxing home in the game. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.